In 1931, China became diseased, rotten to the core. Not a single Chinese knew they were facing not only the deadliest flood ever recorded, but the most devastating natural disaster in recorded history. As 1931 progressed, an El Niño slowly began to grow stronger and stronger. El Niño is when the ocean surface temperatures in the Pacific Ocean along the equator are warmer than average. At the same time, the Western Pacific Subtropical High began to form. Also known as WPSH, it is a large atmospheric high-pressure system located over the Western Pacific Ocean during the summer months. As the El Niño grew stronger, it pushed the Western Subtropical High southwestern over mainland China, bringing tropical moisture along with it. By the month of July, it started to rain, and the rain did not stop. Over 24 inches of rain fell in just over 3 days, and in the city of Zhengzhou, 8 inches of rain was recorded in only an hour. At the same time, a large amount of snow and ice had melted due to a heavy winter just a few months ago, and all that melted snow was making its way down the rivers. The result of this was the worst flood the world had ever seen. The resulting flood covered more than 181,500 square kilometers of land. The flood was so massive that you could fit it in all of England and about half of Scotland. The provinces of Anhui, Hubei, Hunan, Jiangsu, Zhejiang, Jiangxi, Henan, and Shandong were all affected by the flooding. The cities Wuhan and Nanjing and any other city along the Yangtze and Huai rivers were among the hardest hit. After the flooding began in the summer of 1931, it was not until 1932 that the inundation of the landscape disappeared. Over 100,000 people died immediately due to the impact of the flood, but an additional 2 million people were killed by the end of 1932 due to starvation and disease. An estimated 52 million people were affected, which was approximately 10% of the population of China at the time. While the economic impacts are incomprehensible, a new enterprise emerged from the disaster. People would take anything that could float and use them as boats to transport civilians around. This was the only way to navigate the cities, because the streets had essentially turned into canals. However, in some cities, the sewers were overwhelmed by the floodwater, causing them to overflow. This resulted in not only a terrible smell, but the spread of diseases such as cholera, malaria, smallpox, and measles, killing even more people. The government's initial response was to establish the National Flood Relief Commission. This involved the employment of various Chinese and foreign experts to conduct an aerial survey of the flood zone. They also encouraged charitable donations to gather money to expend on flood control devices such as dams, which they were only able to build along the Yangtze River due to the economic collapse from foreign wars. Even though more organizations such as the Huai River Conservancy Commission were set up to address flood problems, there was a lack of funding, and external and internal wars such as the Second Sino-Japanese War and Chinese Civil War restricted the budget even more. Ultimately, China's governmental responses were a failure. Over the years, however, the Chinese government has invested heavily in improving the stability of infrastructure and reservoir management to enhance flood control. This includes implementing early warning systems, improving dam safety hazards, and conducting regular maintenance.